Look, I think the structural issues remain. The core challenges, such as inflation, are largely continuing at the same or similar pace that they have in the last few years. The most recent data I've seen suggests that inflation rates are still in that kind of 30 to 35% range, which is very high. Um, Wages remain low, far lower than they were pre-coup, at least in purchasing power terms. You have, at least in the last couple of months, seen a number of strikes in garment factories in Yangon, which I think are significant, but they also point to the strain that workers are under, where compensation packages are not enough to provide basic necessities. And so I think they see that there are fewer reasons not to strike, that they're forced to do that. Some have secured increases in total pay packages, which I think that's a good sign. Um, Beyond that, you're coming into the third quarter of the year, which tends to be kind of a lean time for Myanmar. It's a time when there isn't as much, especially exports going out and money coming back into the country. If you look back at the exchange rate over the last 4 years, what you'd see is uh, in the third quarter, there's always some type of exchange rate crisis, and that's because it is a lean time of year for foreign exchange, generally speaking. Um, Last year, I think it was in September, the exchange rate spiked to somewhere around 6,800 kyat per dollar, has since come back down, and interestingly has at least the market rate or the black market rate has remained remarkably flat since then. Um, while some people would think of that as a encouraging thing, frankly, it worries me. Um, the market rate isn't really responding to market forces anymore, which is, I think, a serious cause for concern. Um, You've seen some pretty significant changes in the US dollar in the last 6 months, and some dramatic and immediate ones due to Trump's tariffs, amongst other things, which, caused a 1 day change in the the rate between the US dollar and pretty much every other currency globally, but not the Myanmar kyat, not the market rate for the Myanmar kyat. And so, I think there's a number of reasons this could happen. Um, I think you can speculate as to what's going on, but I think you can definitively say that the quote unquote market rate now is not responding to market forces in the way it did before September 2024. That could have some potentially serious implications down the road. I think it's something to continue to keep an eye on, but it is certainly coming into third quarter a bit of a cause for concern. Beyond that, you continue to get a little bit of foreign investment coming into Myanmar. It's not significant. It remains kind of on the order of 15-ish, 10 to 20% of what you were getting before the coup. Um, you have limited amounts of manufacturing investment. You have some other things, but um, you know, what's the impact of it? It's quite limited. Um, So, yeah, trade, unfortunately, the trade situation is becoming more difficult to monitor because the SAC has stopped releasing some trade data. So I haven't looked at that in a couple months. Um, I haven't seen any notable or significant changes, but truth be told, I haven't sort of done a thorough look at it in a bit. I do know that some areas continue to do okay. The garment sector, at least the best I understand, is doing all right. There was an article in the Global New Light of Myanmar talking about the garment sector a month or two ago, which cited a rise in demand and increased demand for workers. Um, so, you do see some parts of the economy continuing to, kind of move along. But, I think there's also some areas that are certainly a cause for concern. In other parts of Myanmar that aren't under SAC control, look, I think you see sort of a range of challenges. Rakhine State, my understanding at least is that you've seen some prices moderate there, that you've seen an increase in some trade going across the border with Bangladesh, which I think is a really necessary thing that supports the livelihoods of just kind of everyday people, helps them to access goods at a more affordable price. Um, you still have a significant amount of trade moving across the Thai-Myanmar border. Most of that is going through, informal channels. Um, and that's a significant amount. At least last year, it was on the order of probably $4 billion in total 2-way trade. So it's quite a bit. Yeah, you still have a lot of challenges in terms of the economy in many ERO controlled areas. Numerous reasons. Conflict obviously is it's a huge challenge. It's very, very difficult to engage in economic activity in a conflict zone. Um, a lot of people I think are there trying to get by. So you have that. You do have some I think a number of EROs that are working on improving various aspects of their economic governance. I wrote something for ISEAS a couple months ago, which just sort of was an overview of some of the economic governance efforts of EROs. You see a wide range of things, some really good, some not so good, but some experimentation, some growth in capacity of their bureaucracies. So, yeah, it's interesting and a very diverse set of developments there. So you talk about Myanmar's economy, but as the conflict continues, you really deal with almost economies. They still interact, but they're less integrated and less connected than they might have been a few years ago, and have greater connections with other countries and or just more self-sustaining.